All right, let's get started. So good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Harper. I'm going to be teaching at your section of Math 11-12 this semester. And like I mentioned in the email earlier this week, all we're doing today is just a quick little rundown of the general idea of the course, walk through the syllabus, and then look at the Canvas site together, where we are going to be doing pretty much everything. All the assignments and exams are going to be done through Canvas. So let's start by looking at Canvas. So when you log into our site, it should look something like this, with a whole bunch of buttons down here that we're going to sort of go through together today. But this first little blurb at the top is giving you a basic idea of the class. Basically, what's going on here is that a few years ago, we noticed that basically everyone had to get a math credit of some sort. Specifically, the business students were all taking what was previously called business calculus, and we decided it wasn't as useful as it could have been. So we sort of just made this course up, which is sort of a combination of some applied math ideas, some like real world mathematics topics, and doing that math inside of Excel, which is a much more realistic approach to doing math in a real world, as opposed to just, scribbling down a whole bunch of pencil and paper stuff. So one weird thing about this course, and it's often referred to as the Excel course, is that we pretty much are going to do every piece of math inside of Excel that we can. Maybe not so much to start, because a lot of it is just arithmetic to start, so it's easier. But that is our main goal. How do we do these day-to-day things in Excel? So that's what's this little blurb mentions. Now, if we go through these buttons one at a time, if I hit this little Start Here button at the top, it takes us to this page, which has basically everything I'm going to be going over today. This first link at the top has a few videos you can check out if you want, has some additional input of how some other instructors feel you should manage your time throughout this course, but I'll mention most of those things eventually. The course materials is a link for all the things we're going to use there. I'll go through those in a second. All these buttons, starting with course navigation and below, are, if you're not familiar with Canvas, just how to get used to that. And then down below, other things we're going to talk about today, like the syllabus, office hours, and the assignments that are sort of due coming up this next week. So if I go back to this home page, the next thing on here is syllabus. Let's take a look at that. The syllabus initially looks like this. There's a whole bunch of little buttons in here. So let's just start at the top. Grading just has a breakdown of all the points that we are going to be using to calculate your grade this semester. You can check that out for yourself, but we're going to go through each of these individually in a second. Next one is textbook. This is a little bit weird, but there is no textbook for this class. So if you went to the bookstore, you might not have seen a standard $300 textbook or whatever ludicrous costs they are these days. But sometimes, I don't know about this semester, there is this PDF that we created on campus that has sometimes been printed out and made as a hard copy bound thing you can sometimes buy in the bookstore. I don't know if that's actually available this semester because of how weird this is, but that's what we're going to be using. It's primarily just a PDF that we're going to be following along, sort of explaining the material and giving us some examples to work through in class. And if you want, you can download the whole book here. But my personal preference is, as we go through these things, which are broken up into modules, it just has them broken up almost by chapter. So like, here's the module 1 download. And that way it's much shorter. You don't have to scroll to like page 60 when you open it up. Like I said, we are going to be using Excel a whole lot. So if you do not have Excel on your computer, you can download it for free on the OIT website. You can click this link here, which takes you to this CU Office of Information Technology website. You click this little software button here, which takes you to this page, and you can download Excel for free. And then you just log in with your CU credentials to make that work. The other thing you're going to be wanting to download is an extension for Chrome called Proctorio. And that's just going to allow me to sort of see what's going on when people are taking their exams and, make sure someone else isn't taking your exam for you. It is a little annoying, but, if you hate Proctorio, you have privacy issues, just delete it every time you're done with an exam. It's not really a big deal. It takes like all 10 seconds to download, but I just leave it on the whole semester. It doesn't personally bother me that much. One of the first things that has points in this class that we're going to talk about is in-class participation. So normally the way this class works is I get up at the front of the class, I give you like a little 10 to 20 minute lecture about the material and the Excel tools that we're going to be using that day. You don't need to know anything, by the way, about Excel. I'll teach you everything. And then the rest of class, like a solid 30 to 40 minutes, people are just working on the material, and all the desks are typically, grouped together. People tend to work with their neighbors, and we just work through these assignments together in class. And so that's what these points are there for. Now, it's not going to be entirely the same since we're on Zoom, but we're going to try to replicate that as best as we can. So, we're going to start at the very least with breakout rooms and see if, you can hopefully meet some people with similar studying behaviors as yourselves, so where you can, work through these things together. And, if you find out you hate that and you'd rather work alone, that's totally fine. But, we're gonna start out by giving this a chance, because typically I feel like when I'm teaching this in person, at least half the class is working with their neighbors. It's a very social class. It just makes it easier to work through the material. The next thing we're talking about there's these weird little things called online discussions, and this says there are 4 of these, but there's actually 5. I'll talk about that in a second. But this is sort of the non-computational aspect of class. Like 90% of what we do is, hey, here's some numbers. What's the answer? And you give me back another number. And so sometimes you get a little lost in those numbers, figuring out what you're actually doing. So these discussions give you a chance to verbalize and talk about, this is the process, this is what I'm thinking as I do it, and here's how I go through these things. And that page looks something like this. As you can see, there are 4 plus this one at the top. This is one of our first assignments. It's basically just introduce yourself, just to get used to, the discussion board on Canvas. And it's just a little extra credit for filling that out. It's nothing too bad. Yeah, I think most of this is fairly self-explanatory. Syllabus stuff we can talk more about when there's actually a real one too. Office hours are open, and what that means is when you pull up the office hours page, so I'm going to go back to the home page, pull up office hours. All of these are the other instructors of this class. You can go to any of these. So I have mine listed right there, but this is just like my initial office hours. You can schedule some with me if you want to meet some other time. Let's say like before class at 7 even is fine. We can talk, or you can just email me if it's something quick. But this is, if you're really struggling, you want like an extra 20, 30 minutes with an instructor at some point throughout the day, just click on one of these and you can go to any of those. I believe that's all of them, but there might be more. I don't know. First week's a little weird. Sometimes people are slow putting those up. Homework quizzes. It says quizzes, but they're just homework. These are questions that are pretty much due every single day, as we will see in the schedule in a second. But basically, like I was saying earlier, after I give my lecture and you work on this stuff for 30 minutes or whatever in class, the homework assignment is near identical. You got like maybe 4 questions that you need to answer that are basically exactly the same as what you just did, just testing you a little bit further. And because they're so similar, they're pretty easy to knock out fairly quickly. So yes, it's annoying that they're pretty much every day, but they're very fast, which is nice. Other things that are nice is unlimited attempts, which is great. But there are no extensions. So make sure you don't forget. Just assume there's always something due and then you won't forget. We will drop 5 of these if you do forget occasionally. But other than that, try to get 100% because it is free points. So use those unlimited attempts. What else? The first module, its exam is a little bit different than the rest. This one, you're going to get 3 attempts. The main reason why is because this first exam is next Friday, which is, we know, a little fast, but to make up for that, I think it's next Friday. Yep. To make up for that, you got 3 chances. So, you could take your first attempt during class. We could talk about it together if you want, and you got 2 more chances throughout the day. You do have like a 24-hour window to attack these. So you got plenty of time to knock that out. What else? Okay, so this is true for all exams, not just the first one, but all these exams are in Canvas. You got like an hour, maybe 50 minutes. I forget the exact time window to take these. And you can take it anytime throughout the day. Just make sure you're done before 11:59 p.m. and you're good. I would strongly recommend you take it during class. That way, something breaks, you can ask me. Let's say your computer crashes for 10 minutes in the middle of the exam. I can give you that time back, but I can't if it's 10 o'clock at night and you're, I'm in bed or something. So if you take it during class, you are at least guaranteed I'm around. Once again, no makeups, so try not to miss those if you can. We will drop one of those if it comes to that, that's fine. And if some emergencies arise and you do need to miss 2 or more, maybe you're in the hospital or something crazy for 2 exam days, we can talk about it. But those do really need to be like emergency situations. So hopefully this single drop is good enough for most of us. Final exam is already scheduled. Make sure you're available at that time. We're not scheduling any flights anywhere at that point. Late work, as I've already mentioned, this is pretty much universal. There's not any late work accepted in this class, which is a little annoying, but that's just the policy they settle on. Exam proctoring software, this is that Proctorio thing I mentioned earlier. This is just a few sort of answers to common issues sometimes people have with it when it's not loading correct. And a nice thing about this is we do have an assignment that basically just checks if it's working. So like the first time you use it isn't during an exam. So you'll get a double check that it's working in Canvas before the exam. I'll show you that in a second. What else? Honor code. So because this class is so electronic and we do really encourage you to work together, there is a lot of gray area on what's allowed. And unfortunately, people tend to go a little past what we would like them to do each semester, and we end up reporting a lot of people to the honor code every single semester. So this little area of the syllabus is just sort of a little rundown, a list of what's allowed and what isn't. This is pretty much the main one that people get in trouble with. When you're working together with people, you can share your screen like I am, share your work, that's fine. What you cannot do is literally email a copy of your work to someone else. That's, even if you work together on that thing, I can't tell the difference between one person doing everything and you working together on it. So we just draw the line there. Don't send things to each other when you could just meet over Zoom and discuss it. That would be fine. And the rest of this is fairly self-explanatory, I believe, for the most part, but you can read through that. And if there's anything you're worried about, will I get reported to the honor code for something? Just ask me, not a big deal. Yeah, try not to have any other electronics open during an exam. Proctorio can't see those other screens, so I can't see, if you're talking to someone else, stuff like that. If you have any accommodations, let me know. We can talk about it. If you want to talk about it today, that's totally fine. All this other stuff's fairly typical stuff. If you want to go through it and discuss it with me, we can, but I've been talking for a while, but now, so let's just move to the more pressing issues at the moment, and then I'll let you go. So we'd already talked about discussion. Don't forget about this first one. This first one that's due next week. Takes 2 seconds to finish that. Office hours talked about that. Oh yeah, going back to this homepage. The next link is the course schedule link. This is extremely useful because it has the entire semester planned out. So if you ever want to know what we're doing today or what you might miss, check that out. It looks like this. Today, syllabus, Monday, no class, holiday, Tuesday, we're going to start the first module, and the first homework is due. What is this homework? Syllabus review. Well, it's basically just a quick homework, making sure you understand the syllabus. I'll show you where you can find that in a second. One place is this assignment button, but I think there's an easier place to find that. Last couple buttons on here on this homepage, office hours, if you want to use those. That doesn't really pertain to anything yet. And just a few other Q&A type stuff, frequently asked questions about either advice from previous students if you're worried about this class, or if you have any issues with Proctorio. Okay, last thing I want to talk about. Typically, next week when we start actually going through the material, you're going to be using this modules button. It's going to take you to this page here. Couple links up at the top, just some general basic info about the class. This is more or less what we did today. We ran through a bunch of this stuff here. Here are 2 other assignments that you can work on if you want to stick around today and knock these out. Syllabus homework, like I said, is some questions about the syllabus. It's very fast to knock out. If you submit it and don't get all the answers, not a big deal. It even tells you which ones you got wrong. And like I said, you can take these homeworks as much as you want. So make sure you get 100% there, because there's no point in missing points this early on. Proctorio setup and verification. Basically, once you install Proctorio and you start this assignment, it's just going to run through the checks for Proctorio, make sure it works. That's all there is to that one. That way, we know it's working before the first exam. So I believe that is everything I wanted to talk about. Here's a little list of things to do for next time. Make sure Excel and Proctorio is installed, knock out these 3 assignments, and then don't forget our next class is Tuesday, not Monday. So I'll leave that up on the screen for a couple minutes in case anyone wants to glance over that. But does anyone have any general questions about the course? I know there's a lot of information, but it's all on Canvas, so you can always go back and check it out.